Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunigan, and today we have two special guests.
Ryan Haas.
And Stephen Applebaum.
And these two gentlemen, they run the Super Mario Brothers movie archive. And I came across that a few months back. I remember I was checking out Game Historian, and he referenced you guys, and I have to check this site out. And I saw all these different Mario Brothers scripts and all these things. Like, I thought I knew a lot about the Mario Brothers movie, because this is like Spencer and I. This is one of our favorite movies, but it's one of those things where it's so rare to find people really passionate about it, and then to find that, and even like your guys' site is just so damn informative.
Well, that's the goal.
Well, it's just that thing. It's like, you go around life, and people always want to, put down your ideas when you tell them, you're like, man, Mario Bros. Is one of my favorite movies of all time. And they're like, what? That's crazy talk. It's like, no. It's a fantastic movie. It's good times. It's like what the 90s represented for me. Like, don't take my dreams away, damn it. And that's just how I always kind of feel about it. It's just like, there's so much good stuff in the Mario Brothers movie. And I think that sometimes people don't give it credit for sort of what it kind of is, especially as far as like, technically it's the first video game movie. Right there in itself is already breaching huge ground. And just to be able to have a movie, that to me is already magic enough. But I like the Blade Runner take that it kind of has going for it.
Yeah. That's definitely something people miss out on when you look at the context of the era of the film. Essentially, the very first film adaptation of a video game to go against this atmosphere of parents not really sure of this new source of entertainment. And you had, Congress and everyone going after violence in video games with Doom and other contemporary games. And sometimes Super Mario Brothers would get caught in the crossfire and other Nintendo titles. So when Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jane Hill, who ultimately directed the film, had that power over what the ultimate vision should be, they realized that they had to bear in mind that the parents would be there alongside their children, and that the parents had to be convinced that this was something that was worth, exposing their children to.
Well, yeah, it's just kind of being able to jump on into something that's a brand new territory. And I think as anybody who's kind of like, you always think about your parents kind of like taking them to certain movies, especially as a kid. Because as a kid, you'd be like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. I can't wait, Mom. You're going to believe it. You're not going to believe it. It's going to be so awesome. And as a parent, they're probably just like, okay, let's see what he's dragging me into this time,
Pokemon 2000, here we fucking go.
Oh, here comes the Digimon movie now. There's always those movies. I remember me and Ryan, we were one time going to do a Digimon movie podcast. And we were like, dude, let's sit down. We're going to rewatch it. It'll be just like 2000s all over. And I don't know what it was. It was like, we watched it. We watched the whole thing. And we just kind of looked at each other at the end and being like, oh my God, I think I know what it feels like to be like a parent now, just like coming into something. And even though we grew up watching this, now there's almost this like stretch where I'm not too sure what's going on anymore. I feel very confused.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the It's funny you mentioned the Digimon movie, because that's before we did we reviewed the fantasy scripts that you guys have posted on your website. We actually were doing we were going to do Digimon. They're like, you know what? I feel defeated. Let's put on something that's going to make me happy. How about we just do a fan audio commentary to the Mario Brothers movie? You're like, fuck it. Yeah, let's do that. So it comes full circle.
Yeah, we came full circle to the Mario Brothers. But see, the thing to me is like, I feel Mario Brothers always holds up. Now, granted, that might be my nostalgia kind of playing into it. It's interesting to think like, what is that movie to like a 10-year-old? You know what I mean? Like, if you show it to them now, like, do they think it's totally awesome? I mean, me as a kid, like I was into all kinds of movies, so you could have showed me a movie from the 20s and I would have thought it was totally amazing. But just, you take a regular kid, it's like, what is that reaction that you think they get when they see the Mario Brothers movie?
I think the reaction of a kid today would be very similar to a kid in the 90s, which would be like, what? Like, I think it took a very special group of people to kind of understand what was being done with the film then, and now too. I mean, there's a lot of context going on with it. There was, a lot of thought put into it, and I think that it's a lot of that thought doesn't come across unless you're like really invested in what the filmmakers were trying to do with the movie.
Yeah, and I think that kind of might be it too. And I think it's always like, especially the expectations. You know, if you've played a bunch of Mario games and you go into that movie expecting it to be Mario World or Mario 3, or I guess even nowadays, let's say if you're a kid, you think it's supposed to be Mario Odyssey or maybe Mario Galaxy even, or New Super Mario Brothers. And you go in there and it's just like, whoa, it's radically kind of different. But I don't know. To me, as a kid seeing the movie, I guess I hadn't know as like, I've only played Mario 1, 2, 3, and World by that point. I don't think anything else was even out yet.
Yeah, so, that was it.
For me, it was like, was going in there like maybe it's just the '90s and that time period. Like the idea of a Mario movie itself was already just mind blowing. Like that's all I needed. Like it didn't have to be perfect. It just had to be awesome, and it was just straight amazing to me from the get go. But there's something about that kind of genre I really like a lot. It kind of fits into this. It reminds me like, Tank Girl fits in that same type. Even sort of kind of like Punisher, the first one of Dolph Lundgren. It sounds like a weird choice. Judge Dredd.
No, there's a connection there. The guy that directed that Punisher movie was the editor of Mario Brothers.
Oh, is it Mark Goldblatt?
Yeah, Mark Goldblatt.
Yeah.
I forgot that. Yeah, because that's like the one movie I remember when the Punisher. It's like, oh, Mark Goldblatt's finally got a movie he gets to direct, and then it's like, oh, he's back to editing once again. But he goes from like the biggest to he does so many movies. Anyways, he did like Bad Boys. He does Lethal Weapon. I think he's on Predator. He's on a Commando. I just watched that again, so I know that. But that guy's always, you see his name everywhere.
I think you mentioned Tank Girl, and that's a very appropriate comparison since when you look at the early scripts, especially, there's a very deep inspiration from Mad Max. Like Super Mario Brothers is almost like a parody of Mad Max in the same way that Tank Girl is like a reversed gender swap version of Mad Max, because they're both set in the Australian wasteland after the apocalypse, but they're approached in very different tonal ways.
Yeah, it really feels a lot like Mega City when you're in Dinotopia. Has a lot of the 2000 AD thing going on.
But to me, I always
that's.
Oh, carry on.
Yeah, that just seems to be the themes that a lot of creators were exploring at that time in the late 80s, early 90s with Total Recall and Mad Max and everything you mentioned is some sort of political statement with gentrification and urbanization and just building upward and upward and downward, and you have people living in the sewers and you have the elite living higher and higher, and you have these tower motifs in a lot of these films as well. Mega City had that climax in the Judge Dredd film was set in towers, much like the World Trade Centers that you would have in like Super Mario Brothers with Koopa's towers.
Yeah, there is always that kind of, it's almost that dark futuristic sci-fi city that people were almost fearing from the almost from the 80s section on. It spreads into the 90s, but there's that almost like fear of like where we are going. It's like kind of like in Back to the Future Part 2 when they go back in time.
Yeah. Or
when Biff goes back, gets the almanac, goes to the future, and then they go back to the 1985, but now it's Biff's 1985, and it's just like
the alternate. Yeah.
And it's just destroyed. And it's supposed to be like the Donald, like almost like Donald Trump like had it at that time period. I think that's funny how that's based off of. But
yeah. Well, and you've got your like King Koopa is pretty close to that same kind of character too, really.
Oh yeah, totally. Just the guy who's just in control of everything, does whatever he wants. Yeah. Nobody really tells him anything different.
And look no further than one of the things that got Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel the directing job on Mario Brothers was their work on Max Headroom. That's another quintessential example of the time period of that kind of watch where the future is going kind of parable of a broken society in the future. But it's got got a sci-fi slant to it.
Now I never seen that, but doesn't a character
gave that subtitle to the genre 20 minutes into the future?
Exactly.
I've actually never seen Max Headroom, but isn't there a character in that has the exact same haircut as Dennis Hopper?
Yeah, it's very similar. I wouldn't say it's exactly ridges. It's more like if someone had a hyper coiffed hair, but you could only render it so detailed with the polygons they have, so it just looks really blocky.
They were trying to make it look like a computer generated hairstyle.
Makes sense. That makes sense right there. Yeah, I've always wanted to check out Mech's Headroom. Never had a chance to see that. But going back to Mario Brothers, the movie for a second. Now, did you guys kind of see it right when it first came out and liked it right from the get-go, or did you find it a little later in life and then just fell down the rabbit hole of information on all the things about it?
I mean, we both saw it well after its initial theatrical release. I mean, we were both a little too young to see it when it first came out and understand it. So for me, I didn't see it until the mid to late 90s. But once I did, I identified with it. I kind of was like, well, this is interesting. This isn't like just the games come to life like you would expect, and that always intrigued me, even as a kid. And so, years later, when I was in college in 2007 was when I decided, I'm gonna make a website devoted to this movie so we can reopen the conversation and kind of see what happens. And for years prior to that, I had collected so much merchandise and memorabilia from the movie. I just kind of wanted one spot online to kind of house all that, and it kind of grew from there. Go on, Steven.
For me, it took me well into just before the turn of the millennium for me to refamiliarize with myself with the film. I was always super into the Super Mario titles, and so from there, my mother recognized that, and she recorded the film off TV for me. So I had my own VHS recording with, unfortunately, commercials included. And it was always so fascinating for me because the film starts out, in the Brooklyn portion, our world, and then it moves on to Dino Hat and then rested in. It's like huge segments of the film is almost like a level or a world comparable to the games. And I don't know why, but my particular recording of the film was cut off just after they eject from the unfinished tunnel that leads into the Kupahari Desert, and the fungus catches them, and then they go wander into the desert, and my recording just ended from there. And after just finishing that whole police chase segment, it was just so unsatisfying but yet mysterious to not know what the next world they might explore would be. It was just this big setup for what could happen in the desert, and I'm like, oh man, what happened? And it took me years before I finally got an actual official release of the film and realized that nothing really happened in the desert. But soon after that, they would go to the Boom Boom Bar, and it kind of picks up from there. So I wasn't too disappointed.
I remember that with certain VHSs that you would tape, and then either it'd end right there, or for some reason the VCR decided it was just going to stop it somewhere, and the next thing you know, you go to rewatch your movie, and you're like, what? There's 20 minutes still in this film. Where is it?
Someone changed the channel.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Different.
I remember when that would happen too. Or, it just changes on you, and next thing you know, it's or you have it programmed to a different channel, so you're just recording something else the entire time.
Yeah, or for my family, it'll be just recording over something you've already recorded. So you'd be halfway through something you liked, and then like your little sister had taped something over it, and it starts a different show.
Just some other episode
Chris
comes
explains
on.
it all. Damn it.
Yeah, there goes that.
Garden, the Mario movie, something about that which I find kind of interesting is, I'm not sure if it was intentional. I'm pretty sure it was coincidence, but there are some things in this movie that kind of lay the foreground for later Mario stuff. Like, for instance, when they come to the wall for the first time, and it does the ripple effect. When I first played Mario 64, first thing that came to my mind, because I actually saw this movie in theaters. This is not the first movie I saw in theaters, but one of them. So, going to the wall for the first time Mario 64, I'm like, oh, Mario movie. I wonder if that was intentional, because even then, that's something Nintendo is trying to brush under the rug, pretend like it never happened. But then there's also the whole thing about people are like, oh wait, why does Luigi get with the princess? That was the whole question people have. But then later they made it's Daisy, and I think at the time, there's a princess. This game she's called Daisy. This one she's called Toadstool. Just call her Daisy. It sounds better.
That's basically why they called her Daisy, because they did not want to call her Toadstool, and Peach had not been used in America. Mm-hmm. And so, The precedent though was interesting. Like in the NES Open Tournament golf game, they did have Mario, Luigi, Daisy, and Princess Toadstool, and so there it was kind of established that Luigi was paired up with Princess Daisy. So I'm not exactly sure if the writers took inspiration from that, but it did exist prior to the film coming out. So that is kind of some interesting trivia.
Oh, really? I thought Daisy first popped into Mario Tennis 64.
No, she's before that.
Oh, damn. Look at me.
Yeah, I mean, and she, of course, was the princess in Super Mario Land for the Game Boy.
Yeah, that. She was the princess in Mario Land, but I thought that was them bringing her back, like kind of like Wario to like Mario Kart for the Mario Kart 64 for the first time in a while.
And then you had Pauline from Donkey Kong, if you want that. The
long
lost love.
Yeah.
Just.
See, and that really goes to show how amorphous this franchise is that you have so many different damsel in distress types that at first, way back when these games first came out, none of them really had any personalities. Yet nowadays people identify with Peach as more of the debutante, the dignified type, where he's Daisy is more tomboyish, and Rosalina is like, the intelligent, introspective one. You didn't have any of that at the time. And going even further, a lot of the damsels, Pauline, Toadstool, whatever, they didn't have consistent hair colors and the different artwork. Sometimes Pauline would have blonde hair, sometimes she'd be brunette. Same thing with Toadstool, it'd switch around.
Yeah, it's just like, there's just that, like, whatever, it's a video game. The kids will pump quarters into it. Put it out there, it's done. I just feel like it's got that old world business sense. Like, we gotta get this job going before, noon, before we gotta go down to the bar and get something to eat. So let's get these games out. But since Mario Brothers sounded like it came a little bit later, was there another video game movie that first caught your attention, before that? Before you really got into Mario Brothers, was there anything else, like as in Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or Double Dragon or any of the other 90s ones?
I'd seen Double Dragon, I think, on TV, and it was like, yeah, okay. I mean, it was, but Street Fighter is the one that I think sticks in my head the most, other than Super Mario Brothers, just because it's very similar in its like tone of trying to really do its best to interpret the games onto film. And that movie's always fascinated me too. So, but that's kind of the big two. I think Super Mario Brothers and Street Fighter kind of go together.
Well, yeah, because
for that era.
It's a lot different for me.
Well, because really, Street Fighter is a cool movie too. Go ahead.
What were you going to say, Steven?
Yeah, I mean, as far as Street Fighter, since you brought that one up, has a very similar tumultuous development history, and exactly. I think it's similar. It's different from Super Mario Brothers in that the original video game company had a lot more input in that they wanted to see these characters, and they kept inserting more characters to the detriment of particular, protagonist arc.
Yeah, that's definitely true of each one of those ones too. And because the thing is, when you go back and look at Street Fighter, I know that movie's always been kind of like put down as well for years, but all in all, when you think about like how early that movie kind of came out and sort of like what it's really going off of, I mean, the characters are pretty well dialed in. I mean, I know Guile's the main character, and like that's, that always kind of got people, because Ryu and Ken are kind of like on the sidelines being like, hey, we're kind of like the comic relief guys here. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, though, I mean, it's got pretty much all the characters from Street Fighter 2 in there. They look pretty darn accurate for the most part, for the fact that it's only the second video game movie.
It's still better than Legend of Chun-Li.
Yeah, it's better than Legend of Chun-Li, that's always for sure.
Yeah. For me, the first video game film that I pretty much saw was the original Pokemon first movie. I was very much into, the Pokemon video games and the anime show that they had. It was a phenomenon, and me and my siblings were actually picked up from school. Usually we would ride the bus home, but we were picked up and taken straight to the theater. And we got really great seats, and we saw the first movie. And then having actually watched the show every single day, every single episode. We were caught up, and the film continues off from a certain point in the anime. So it's like we had followed the plot as what as little as there is. But the movie continued where that left off, and it actually gave us a sense of closure to what the show had to offer. And
now, do you
unfortunately, after the film came out, that's when you started to see the franchise really change, and it just wasn't the same.
Now, do you remember which Pokemon card you got when you saw the movie?
Yeah, it was a holographic Egyptian Mew. I still have it.
Nice. I got the Dragonair my first time through, but I got the Mew the second or third maybe. Saw that movie a few times in theaters. Mm-hmm. Well, there's Pokemon cards involved. We had to see it a couple times in theaters at least. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Like the boss over here.
Yeah. They also had it was either McDonald's or Burger King had a promotion with.
It was Burger King with the golden
Burger
cards.
Yeah, that.
I literally have mine. I got my Mewtwo one sitting right across from me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the marketing for that was, I don't really brilliant how they marketed that film compared to Super Mario Brothers when they had promotional plunder. It's just like they never knew what to do with the brand of Super Mario Brothers. It's, from the very beginning, from the scripting process on to filming it to marketing, they just didn't know what to make of it. And that really speaks to how few games were out at the time, and it was just not much other than a platformer in a fantastical world. So I think for the filmmakers to translate it into what they did, it's creative, it's unusual, it's subversive, but it also it's still true to that sense of family and trust and hope and quest and everything that comes together to a good character development story.
Well, it's almost got like sort of a Steven Spielberg kind of vibe to the film when you think about it. And I know a lot of movies were kind of going for that time period. That was the end thing to sort of have. And to me, that always kind of works. Like, you can't go wrong with a Steven Spielberg vibe.
Yeah, as little plot as there is in Super Mario Brothers, you still get a sense of heart in how Bob Hoskins as Mario and John Leguizamo as Luigi interact with each other as brothers. You believe that they're brothers. You believe that they have some sort of a history. So when they tease each other and when they fight throughout the film, you're invested in that. And you still see in Fiona Shaw's performance as Lena, the resentment in her eyes and in her body language, how she interacts with Coop and with Samantha Mathis as Daisy. There's great dynamics with all of these different actors. They're really using the material to great effect.
Yeah, especially since there wasn't a whole lot to work off of at the time. And I'll be honest, like when I hear people complain about the movie and kick it down, sometimes it's like, okay, you weren't there for it, or it's just not for you, so okay, whatever. But every so often you get people just like, okay, why is Luigi? Why is that's Peach? That's not Daisy. It's Peach. It's like, all right, dude, it was a different time. You got to stop and put this in. And then you also get the other one, which was what's the other one that I hear that always pisses me off? There's the one where it's like, there's another example.
Well, the two biggest complaints about that of game fans is why is it Peach and why doesn't Luigi have a mustache? I mean, those are the two things.
Well, the thing is, like, she wasn't called Peach at the time, and it's like it's like Wikipedia's
Yeah, Peach
thing.
didn't come up till 1996
instead of Bowser. Yeah.
And even Bowser wasn't used. See, those are like stupid complaints because that's like, okay, clearly you weren't there in 1993 to understand. That's like a complaint from the future. Mm-hmm. And even like the Luigi thing not having a mustache, to me, I feel like in that movie, that's by him not having a mustache, that kind of shows just a little bit of like the age gap between the two. I think that's exactly what they're going for. And sometimes I think some people, they almost get like a concrete black and white view. Be like, this is game, I want game to be movie. And it's like, instead of having that little bit of like artistic kind of change in the center where it's like, well, we're going to kind of expand on it. No, we want game to movie. Like, it's just like they're trying to please like a caveman or something. It's just not working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my example for
Yeah.
those is like it was, since it was the first game to movie adaptation, people didn't know how to take it, from kids to adults. And kids, it's for a lot of kids, me included, it might even be one of the first major examples of seeing something adapted from one form to another. People see comic books and novels and all kinds of stuff, then and now, and there's something to that, like especially with like comic book characters like Batman, for instance. There's 70 years of history of that character where it's been built up. You have all these examples of what the character is and what the character is not. And so when you watch a movie, you can say, oh, okay, well, that's like the comic books, or, oh, that's a creative choice, or, oh, that worked, or, oh, that didn't work. But for Super Mario Brothers, like you guys have said, there were only a handful of games out, and they were all games, right? That's the only medium that there was other than the cartoons. And which is not was not as much of a mainstream thing as the games were, and the games were just this giant property. So in the eyes of kids especially, the game characters are icons, they're avatars. The people playing the games put their own spin on what they think the characters are and stuff like that, so, instead of the other way around. So they're just icons on a screen that you play the game with. And so, the filmmakers had to interpret that and adapt that and figure out how to turn all that into a story. So they did their best to take, what is this character as an icon, and try to make it into something that could have a story. And in some of the behind the scenes stuff, you hear some of the producers like, Roland Joffe and Jake Eberts, say things those exact same kind of things.
At one point in time, weren't they doing something like, I was reading on your site that what they were doing is they had like this script that the studio wanted to make, and then they came in and they called it the Rainbow Draft because they were re-highlighting different things. So since the thing was just covered with a highlighter, it just became very much the directors versus everybody else on the set. Is that right?
Well, I mean, the Rainbow Draft is a lot of films end up having that. What happens is the different colors represent different stages of rewrites. So it might start out, the script might start out with green pages, like white pages, and then when a extra scene or a changed scene comes in, okay, you got to take out these pages and replace them with the green pages. Okay, we reshot some more. We have some more new scenes, so now we have yellow pages. Oh, we have more scenes. Now we have red pages. So as more and more scenes got changed or altered or removed or added, they kept having to insert new colors to keep track of, the changes when they were added. Mm-hmm. So and they kept the colors there. So, that's why it was called the Rainbow Draft, is because it was ended up being one of the more final shooting drafts, but it was all these different like additional pieces of dialogue and scenes like shoved into the existing script to kind of recut the script on the fly. A lot of movies are rewritten, or scenes are rewritten on the day, but Mario Brothers is pretty notorious because of how many script revisions and rewrites and things that they had.
Yeah, I heard like Bob Hoskins said, like after a while I didn't even I wasn't really practicing. I just be in my trailer waiting for the scene. When it's ready to shoot, I go there, go back. I wasn't really, he was. I remember reading something he was complaining about that, saying like, it just didn't really. They had trouble like keeping track of where Koopa was going. He thought, so he's like, whatever. But at the same time, I feel like it kind of, in some weird way, pans out because you could see Dennis Hopper doesn't want to be there. Koopa clearly doesn't want to be there. So I think it all irons out that way.
Yeah. And pretty much every actor was lobbying the screenwriters, the producers for more dialogue, more screen presence. And if they weren't getting it, then they were taking every opportunity to improvise. And you had Fisher Stevens and Richard Edson as Spike and Iggy, the Super Koopa cousins, and nearly 100% of their dialogue was improvised by themselves, or ad-libbed off of existing dialogue that had been written. But it came down to the point where near the end of the shoot, when they didn't know what to do with those characters, which is why they disappear after they bring Daisy to her father, no one really knew what to do with those characters. So they just kept saying, well, we're still here and we still want to get paid. So how about we say these lines in this scene, and we'll make do. And I think it works out in the end, because for a lot of people, their back and forth banter it's amusing, and it's almost like a metatextual commentary on the film. A lot of people compare them to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern from, Hamlet. They're the two characters that are essentially interchangeable, and they comment on things, and sometimes they have a moment of insight, but they're not even aware of it, and as quickly as it's uttered, they're onto some other point that makes far more sense or for less sense.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, it's just funny how you can almost have like a chaotic production like that, and at the end of the day, and I know some people will be like, that is not true, but you get a great movie out of it almost, It's like it all works out almost in the long run, where like in the moment you're like, is this even going to work out? Like, what is even going on now? Every single day something's different. Like, we're just adding lines, we're taking lines out, we're putting new script things in, and then when you all kind of edit it together and put it, up on the screen, boom, there it is right there, and it works. And, for at least works for me, works for Dunigan, works for you guys. I know there's always that person out there that's like, dude, that doesn't work. What are you guys talking about? We've gotten so many of those comments before being like, stop talking so good about the Mario Brothers movie. It's like, dude, it is good.
Like on our podcast where we just basically reviewed the whole original fantasy script, there is somebody in the comments. They didn't hit dislike, so I guess that's kind of good. But somebody I've never seen before comment and say something to the effect of like, this script was even worse than the movie we got. The dynamic between Mario and Luigi was just like the Wet Bandits from Home Alone, which came out 1 year prior. Just like, you mean the angry, short, fat guy and the dumb, tall guy? I think that goes further back than the Wet Bandits, motherfucker.
I know, this guy just thought he needed to put this paragraph out, just explaining his, like, utter hatred for the idea that we're reading a script, and now for some reason this is bothering. I don't know, that always just makes me laugh when people, it's like they need to put this comment out, but this comment really isn't going anywhere at the end of the day. Like, who are you trying to piss off? I mean, it's just not working.
It's like, why do you want to kick this movie down?
You guys really hit the nail on the head when you were commenting on how a lot of the actors were stating that they didn't know how the film was going to come together. That's how films were made up until that point, is you had very strict, shooting schedule, very strict dialogue, everything to the page. And yet Super Mario Brothers was kind of this turning point in the film industry when they were integrating digital technology. So a lot of things on the screen, were things that were going to be added later digitally with groundbreaking visual effects technology. And you had Samantha Mathis, for example. Okay, you have to act around this animatronic dinosaur. We promised you that the gigantic rod and all the cables that are sticking out of its back end are going to be digitally removed. So you have to pretend that they're not there. And that's pretty much the entire film. Is you have green screens here and digital technology there. It's very much a blended experience, which is why they wanted to bring Bob Hoskins onto the project, because he had done Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a very similar project in terms of live action being blended with animation. And they knew that if he could handle that kind of material, then he could probably act in kind with digital representations of characters.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I think it's interesting that, Dustin Hoffman wanted to be in the movie at one point when they had earlier versions of the draft, and then they originally had Tom Hanks as Mario, but they gave him the boot and went with Hoskins because, well, he just got, like you just said, all the reasons you listed, plus he was a little cheaper.
Yeah, there were a lot of different contenders for the roles of Mario and Luigi. They were considered dual roles. They would both be the headliners, so you wanted to consider them equally. And in looking at Mario, very few people were actually considered. Danny DeVito was near the top. You also had Michael Keaton based off of Batman. They knew he could do a variety of personalities in different situations based off of Mr. Mom and Batman and all the other roles he had done. You can easily translate that into a Mario character going from the real world to the fantasy world. But those two actors didn't work out. It came down to Bob Hoskins, who, in my opinion, probably was the best person, especially since he had this image already associated with other childhood films of the era. For Luigi, you had a similar situation. They wanted someone who could represent the character. A lot of people think that they wanted Tom Hanks for Mario, but that was a misconception that, from based off of the director's comments, he was speaking a bit more ambiguously about the roles in general. Right. They did want Tom Hanks, but they wanted him for Luigi. And I think that would have been very good based off of a lot of the roles he had done. He has this very boyish look to him, and I like that. Yeah, it's just, and I like the exasperation he did in a lot of those roles where, he's reached his breaking point and he just starts freaking out like Daffy Duck would or Donald Duck. And that's perfect Luigi to me. Once they dismissed Tom Hanks and they came down to John Leguizamo, that's a completely different interpretation of the character, and I don't think it's any less valid. It's obviously not the interpretation a lot of people would have wanted. I think Tom Hanks probably would have been closer to the majority of people's idea of Luigi, but I think John Leguizamo, his interpretation really worked out for far more people than a lot of people give the film credit. He carries that role as the second player being promoted to the first player position.
Yeah, he's definitely the heart and soul of the movie, where Bob Hoskins more the brains and the brawn, kind of.
Mm-hmm. But their dynamic as being just brothers, I think. I think that kind of works well. I mean, like in the game, it's almost like, they're real, like, close brothers, like practically the same age, same thing like that. Where this one makes it more like, no, Luigi's the kid brother, Mario's, the older brother, the wiser brother, and maybe he's gone through a darker time period of life that Luigi has this more optimism of like, it's okay, Mario, anything you want, just gotta believe, just tell them the whole time, like, it's gonna happen, it's gonna do this. It's like, no way, Luigi, ain't gonna happen. I've seen things before, things are dark, we ain't going anywhere. But Luigi keeps carrying up that, the optimism, like, just gotta believe, Mario. I've been sitting around playing video games. You've been sitting around playing video games. Well, I'm out there working plumbing, so you can come home and get yourself a new game. Look, you got Sonic the Hedgehog here. How am I supposed to respect that?
You think that girl with the PhD is going to take you in? Fuck no. You can't even do proper fucking plumbing.
All we gotta do is get the next job going, Luigi. Don't you forget that. I feel like the Mario Brothers one from like...
I really love that dynamic.
Just like the Mario Brothers Darren Aronofsky movie. Just these two angry brothers, or like a David Mamet play almost. Going back to casting for a second. Maybe this was another misconception, but I remember reading this multiple spots. And you guys could possibly correct me. There is that one rumor that they were considering Schwarzenegger for Koopa, which, if that was the case...
That sounds amazing.
I love
Dennis Hopper.
I love Dennis Hopper as Koopa, but have you guys ever heard of Austrian Death Machine?
I have not.
It's this death metal band, all themed around Arnold Schwarzenegger, where they take Spencer introduced me to it, where they take a catchphrase or a quote from an Arnold movie and warp a whole metal song around that. I would love to hear one of like him doing "Monkey" or something like that.
Just something from one of the movies there or something like that. That'd be awesome. But actually, speaking of that,
yeah.
Or as I say, go ahead.
They were definitely considering Schwarzenegger for the role. He was probably the first choice for both the original fantasy production, since we do have a lot of concept artwork of for Dragon-esque version of Koopa that has a very prominent Schwarzenegger face, facial features, and all that.
Yeah,
but
and some early. Yeah, we even have some early storyboards of the version we got, the Rocky and Annabelle's version, that have Schwarzenegger rendered as Koopa as well.
But that's what there's no way they're getting Schwarzenegger, especially after Terminator 2, because just that'd be so expensive to have him in it.
Especially being rubber the whole time?
Yeah, that too. But that would have been, in just a fantasy kind of world, that would have been amazing, though.
Mm-hmm. Is there any particular, I mean, do you guys prefer, I mean, I guess I said this when we did the review on the fantasy script. We said, well, you could have a good script that's ruined by like bad direction, but just going strictly off the scripts. Do you guys prefer the one we got, or do you prefer one of the other earlier drafts?
That's a great question. I can't. It's hard to say because we do have the movie that we have, and I can't really separate that. Like if I read what we have as a final script, but I would say I would like to see the the Clement and LaFrene original or revised script filmed. That was the script that actually attracted a lot of the cast members, like Bob Hoskins and Fiona Shaw in particular. Like that was the script that they were like, this script is good, and then it was completely different by the time they showed up. So,
well, those were those ones where like I feel that would make for an amazing comic book if somebody could just take that script and just adapt, because that comic books are always kind of an easy way to sort of go like, here's how we can sort of get an idea what this movie would have been like just to see it, but we don't really have to spend a ton of money to really get a comic book in. You could get that out on there, but it's always kind of that weird one's like, is Nintendo going to allow that to go? Or, and who has the rights to that script now? Is it Hollywood? Hollywood Pictures is kind of not there. So, where's that script in limbo section?
Well, speaking on that, on your guys' Facebook page, there's actually a dude who's doing a full-on, like, retelling of the fantasy script, and it has, like, kind of like early, like, 90s indie comic kind of vibe to it.
Oh, is there somebody doing it?
Yeah. They just got to the Mushroom Kingdom, I think. I think that's the last, or they actually started getting chased by the mobsters. I think they're just around that area, I think, last time I checked it. But what was that? Do you guys know that guy's name off the top of your head? I was looking for it, but I couldn't find it on the page.
Yeah, it's Ryan Bradall.
Yeah, that dude's doing great work there. It's kind of like gritty, but at the same time, I think you kind of need that just to differentiate it,
Yeah, I've been in talks with him for a while. He does a lot of great artwork based off of the film that we have and the original scripts. So him working on this adaptation of the fantasy screenplay has been a long time coming. It's something that he's kind of prepared for. He's done a lot of different concept art, and we've sent him all of the different artwork that we have from the film's development that he could use as the basis for what he's doing. So he's plotted out the entire screenplay in comic book format, and he has a definite goal of completing it. And from there, he does have interest in maybe adapting the other screenplays. So if that's something that you or anyone else would want to see, they should definitely support the fantasy pages that he's putting out now.
And where's the best place that someone can find that? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah, you could find that on our Facebook page, which is SMB, the movie archive. It's very easy to find. We post new material and share articles and stuff every day, so it's a pretty active page as well.
Perfect. That's an easy place. Well, I need to check that out now that that's going on, because that's amazing right there. Because that was the first thing when we were reading that script. I'm like, you know what? It's like, it'd be cool to see a movie, but that's, we know that's a far-fetched idea. But a comic book isn't that far off the spectrum, so that's pretty sweet to see that going on.
And also regarding something in the similar wheelhouse, there's someone else that they're doing, I think, a coloring book, right? They're doing like a full retelling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
It was like a retelling of the whole movie with the style of the video games, right?
Yes, they are. I don't know their actual name off the top of my head, but Their alias is Macotl, Macoatl. I know they're on DeviantArt and Facebook. So, as you guys mentioned, they're adapting the film, each page of the official licensed coloring book, in a more fitting game-inspired style. A lot of the characters weren't out at the time, so you have characters from like the Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga games are represented in the coloring book, but I think it works really well. A lot of the interpretations, it's very fun, and once they're done, they're going to put out a full version of the coloring book that we're going to promote on our website as well.
Oh, awesome! Gotta like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just cool seeing just just these different things of people kind of just really into the Super Mario Brothers movie because, granted, if you can walk down the street and it's not easy to find somebody who like has that same love and appreciation. The weird thing is when I grew up, all my friends really liked the Super Mario Brothers movie. It wasn't until I started venturing past my own town that I realized that, oh, this movie's not nearly as loved as I thought it was. Me and my buddies thought it was the greatest thing ever, but you go out in the real world, and next thing you know, people are trying to tell you that it's not. And, and I think it comes from sort of, the popular thing on the internet nowadays is always to be negative. Nobody wants to be positive because being negative's easy. Being negative gets you, views. So if you can go out and hate on, any kind of movie, any kind of video game, comic, that works. Because you know what? That's going to get you the views. That's going to get you that. But here's the thing. Being positive and talking about things and really enjoying it and, taking in something and going finding the best that's in there and don't look for the negatives because if you do that you'll just start finding negatives and it's just next thing you know you just broken down an entire bridge because you look for every single weak spot. But if you look at the positive, which is hard to do, and really talk about it and really feel why do you like this? Why does this stick out to you? What's the nice things about it? What are the things you can pull from it? I always just try to find the best in anything. If I'm playing a game, reading a comic, watching a movie, I want to find the best that I can and stuff. And that's why I just really end up enjoying a lot of things. It takes a lot for me to not like a movie, and Mario Brothers has always been one of my favorites.
That's awesome. I mean, that's why we have the site, and that's why we made the site, is because it's so fascinating, it's so interesting. There's a lot to like, and and that's what we did. The more we invest into it, the more it gives back, which is just crazy. Every time we think we found everything, we haven't. we find more stuff all the time. It's crazy. And then the community has been so great too. Like Steven, has been saying, he keeps the Facebook and Twitter really active, and there's always so many fans that just are cropping up every day. Either people that are new, that are just experiencing the movie, or people that are surprised that there is the community like this. And it's and we do get a lot of compliments too about how welcoming the fandom for this movie actually is when you get invested in it. And because it's all there. This is all the fandom is for this one movie, and so it's kind of an interesting little spot to be, and there's not a whole heck of a lot of negativity because it's all, if you're part of the fandom, you want to be part of the fandom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unless you're getting somebody who just wants to troll, it's there's no way that's coming
exactly.
There. Well, what makes your guys' website real nice too is the fact that it's not there's a double disc special edition Blu-ray, extravaganza of the Mario Brothers that's just got 2 hours of Ridley Scott style special features. So. You get the movie, and it's kind of one of those ones that's well, where do I go next if I want to learn more, and so on. And your website's the perfect companion. It is the second disc to Mario Brothers that we never got. They just got all the behind-the-scenes kind of features, and there's always being stuff added. You got the production stills, you got the bonus scripts, all that kind of cool stuff.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why the website exists, is because the original Disney DVD was just atrocious, in terms of not just bonus content, but the film transfer itself is just really, really horribly done. And, and I didn't like that. And I just wanted to help turn the conversation around. And over the years, we've had so much content, interviews and stuff on the website. And luckily we were able to get, work with, Second Sight, who put out the Blu-ray for Super Mario Brothers in Region 2 a couple of years ago. And, they got to use, and it kind of went full circle. They got to use a lot of the assets we have on the website as bonus features, on the Blu-ray, and we helped produce a documentary for the Blu-ray as well. So there's all kinds of interviews, from people that worked on the movie and stuff like that. So that's kind of a really rewarding experience to finally, and then we got the movie on Blu-ray. So, and that was just great because, as a fandom, we needed that so bad, to have a good quality transfer in high definition and with the right aspect ratio and all that, because there's so much detail in the film, and having a way to actually be able to appreciate that at a consumer level, I think is super important.
Now, can that Blu-ray though? Is it only in PAL, or can you actually get that in the U.S.?
It's region 2, so it's like you said, it's PAL. You have to figure out how to convert it, but it did also recently get released in Japan. So the rumor is that it's region free and you can use it. I actually have it sealed over here, but I haven't tested that out for myself. So
well, there's a little future question to see there, is if that Japanese version can be region free or something like that. That might be the way to go then, because I remember when that Blu-ray came out, I'm like, oh man, it's region 2. Like I'm like, hopefully the US version will be coming around soon.
Well, just even if the U.S. version doesn't come around, just as much as you guys did, you guys got that going. It just strictly out of fandom. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible when you look at like the Amazon page, for example. In the last few years, a lot of the reviews have been consistently 4 or 5 stars. And when you do look at the 1-star reviews, it's usually something like, oh, I bought this thinking it was a Blu-ray, but I didn't realize it was region B, so I'm going to rate it 1 star.
Yeah, or you get those people that like they don't understand. They think the review place is where you go to complain about, like, well, the shipment came in broken. It's like that's
right.
That's the wrong place. Sorry. Well, and then the one thing that's always nice. That's what I always like about Amazon, as far as like the reviews go for movies, is that when you go there, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be just a Mario Bros. Movie. It can be like all kinds of movies. Is that's where you see the true fans really show up and say how much they love a movie. It's like Last Action Hero. That movie right there has 5 stars galore, because the true fans who love that film, like ourselves, boom, they show up, they put the stars out, and it's there. Really, if a movie actually has like very few good ratings on it, it's probably not that great of a movie, because obviously there's no fans whatsoever for it. But Amazon's always a great like explanation of like, it really, the fans show up, and that's really what tells you like how good a movie is. You don't just get the critic review where they're like, nah, 20%. It's like, no. The people who really like it are going to tell you why they like it, and they're going to add in those like 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs of all kinds of like detail that you're like, man, you're writing an Amazon review and you're going into this much detail? Well, good for you.
Yeah, it truly is a good place. And for a long time, you did see the score on Amazon was very low, like 1.5 stars. But now that you look at it, it's believe it's 4.5 stars, which is an incredible transformation over the years to see so many people actually care to purchase it and then decide, wow, I didn't realize this was as good as I thought it was going to be, so I'm going to have to give it a good review. And a similar thing happened on IMDb.
Right, for the 25th anniversary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what the algorithm metrics are, but for whatever reason, the film, which has for a long time always been on like, the worst 100 films of all time lists, for the anniversary, it just skyrocketed over 2,000 positions, and it was within the 100 most popular films for a while.
Wasn't it like 19 for like 2 or 3 days?
Yes, it was within the top 25 even, and that's what is currently archived. It changes like every day, but if you were to look it up on Internet Archives, that's what's recorded. It's at like the 19th position.
Huh, it's amazing.
I have kind of a small theory about this, and I guess we won't know until the new Mario movie comes out, the Illumination one that they're making. Now, I don't really have high hopes for it or low hopes. I'm just kind of Illumination. I'm not so excited about that studio, but at the same time, they haven't made any. I mean, I hate the Minions like most people, but it's one of those things where I'm not really like, oh, not these guys. Like, let's see what they do before we get all pissed off. But I could actually see when that movie comes out, I can see people being like, you know what? Let's kind of go back and check out the other Mario movie. And they're like, you know what? This isn't as bad as I remember. It's actually kind of fun. If I can just, there's people like us who legitimately like it. And there's other people who go back like, if I can just put all my biases aside and not go in looking for a strict adaptation, this is a pretty fun, entertaining movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
we've already seen some of that for the 25th anniversary. And I agree that'll probably happen for sure. Once the new movie comes out, if Disney decides to, put the movie back out, to the public beyond the DVD.
It's so weird thinking this is a Disney movie.
That's our goal. Disney came in at the 11th hour as the distributor. They put in a last-minute infusion of cash, and that's what had the producers force a doctored script under the director's noses. They didn't have any contribution on that script. So when Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo, and all the other actors arrived on set, they were handed this new doctored script that was approved by Disney. And that's kind of what started the problems is the directors being in charge of the project. They didn't really want to say that they were in a position where they were directing a film they didn't believe in. They didn't want to say this isn't our vision. They wanted to take responsibility for it. And because they did that, the actors blamed them. They said, why did the directors hand us this new script? The directors don't know what they're doing. And so everyone was just kind of blaming each other, but still trying to make the best of this situation.
Yeah, a lot of the stories about Hoskins and John Leguizamo taking shots between shots.
Mm-hmm.
Like how he had the cast. I've actually never noticed. I know that I saw one part where I think I noticed the cast because there's that part when there's that story where when they're driving the plumbing door and it slams on his hand. And I think I see the cast in one scene, but I never noticed it again.
Yeah, I need to kind of. I've never really been good at noticing it myself. We ought to go scour the Blu-ray and find some good shots and make a good feature of it on the website.
Yeah, that's our big goal is that since they are making this new adaptation, is that we really want to get a new home release on shelves that can coincide with that. And hopefully people will be, they'll go to Walmart or whatever to get the new Mario Brothers, and they'll see the old Mario Brothers, and maybe they'll get both. Maybe they'll just get the old one, but either way, they'll get exposed to it. And in that case, we really want to have the best version possible available, which is why we're currently developing a 4K restoration, and it's a very expensive process, but in 2018, we're finally at a point where we feel this is a process that can be applied to Super Mario Brothers, and we can still, there is a demand for that kind of release. People would want to pay for it. So we're going to try to have a new restoration out, and hopefully a special edition as well. Steelbook with great new cover artwork, because a lot of the case artwork that you see for the film has been hit or miss. One of our regrets with the second site release for UK is that they did use the UK artwork that has a different font style for the Super Mario Brothers title. It's not the familiar blue steel with the bolts in it. It's more of a silvery design, and it's just not familiar to Western audiences here in America.
Right.
So we're hoping to, get something that American audiences will recognize. They'll look at it and they'll be like, I recognize Mario and Luigi in those jumpsuits, in that pose with those titles. Something that, it's evocative of the VHS, but really demonstrates that this is a new release that people are going to want to have.
Oh, yeah, that'd be amazing right there.
I'm also just thinking, kind of going back, kind of jumping off the previous thing about this getting kind of like maybe a second life once the other movie comes back. Kind of another example was I remember when Batman Begins came out. Around then, Batman Begins, Dark Knight, I remember a lot of people kind of looked and kind of scoffed at 89 Batman. And just like, oh, it's not the real Batman, whatever. We got this thing over here now. So I guess there's the other thing but I think this movie's already been like people have already kind of kicked it to the curb so much that I think that now it's like people would just kind of go back and look at it, because now people have kind of come back around and people have almost kind of reaccepted 89 Batman again. Like, actually, you know what? It is kind of cool. Yeah, he kills. Yeah, there's machine guns, but you know what? Zack Snyder's having him kill in the last one too, so whatever.
Well, it's like the Space Jam thing, too, because Space Jam came out and it was amazing in 1996, and then there was that period, like in the 2000s, people were like, Space Jam, that was so lame. And then all of a sudden, now, Space Jam's almost coming back around, and it's got like a humongous fan base. It's like, I went to go see that movie in theaters.
Because all the kids that were kids when it came out are now adults. You know, that's how nostalgia works, and that's why Super Mario Brothers is kind of in that same boat, is because the kids that liked it are adults, and they, you know, and they're spending money now, and they can kind of look back on that and understand why they liked it. And want to experience it again.
Well, there's also that thing too. It's almost like it's the same thing kind of happens to cars. Is like in a 25-year span, it's like, okay, a car comes out and it's brand new. People are like, oh, that's awesome. And then all of a sudden, like, it gets about that 10, 15 years, and it's at that weird stage where, it's not really a classic car yet. Now it's just an old junker. Nobody wants it, and so on. And then next thing you know, it surpasses 25 years or so, and then it's like maybe 30 years old, and now it's automatically kind of like this classic car, and people just start to like it because, oh, there's that cool old car. Even if people maybe didn't like it at some point, there it is too. And I notice the same thing sort of happens with movies. And even people that may have liked something at 10 years old, maybe they'll turn on it in their teenage years and, you know, maybe even their early 20s, but then by the time they come to 30, next thing you know, it comes full circle, and you're like, you know what? That was a great time when I was 10 years old. That was the best point of my life. You know, it's been all downhill since then. Maybe it's time to give Space Jam another go. You know, if
Mario Brothers while you're at it too.
Yeah, we're gonna go see Mario Brothers in theaters, and if it doesn't change my life, well, I'm just gonna off myself tomorrow. But damn it, at least there's something I love.
Happy today, at least.
So it's just funny how that kind of works, and that's why I kind of knows of Mario Brothers, because now it's just getting getting showings just like randomly for its 25th anniversary at places, and it's just like, that's awesome. I would have never thought that would ever happen, you know? Getting, you know, Mario Brothers in theaters, even if it's just small pockets across the U.S. and so on, that in itself is just pretty darn amazing.
Yeah, I mean, no small part in effort on our part. You know, Steven had his own screening in Modesto earlier this year.
I was so bummed I missed that one, because that one was so close to me, and I was like, oh, and I saw it in a magazine, and it was like, damn it, that was 3 days ago. I did not see that. And I was so pissed, because I'm like, if that was in LA, I would have been like, oh, okay, you know, I could have made it down there, but okay, it's not as close. But when it was Modesto, I was like, it couldn't have been any closer.
I would have driven from San Francisco to see that, definitely, in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
I would have taken a day off work, like, sorry, sick.
Hell, we drove to Modesto to go see Legend of Chun-Li. I would have drove to Modesto to go see Mario Brothers.
And we said this in the show before, but when we left Chun-Li, we were just like, oh no, it was good. It had elements. It wasn't perfect, but just lying to ourselves, like, he had a big chin. Like, Bison has a big chin, so that's from the game, yeah.
Just trying to find the most positive you can in something, but I know I was so bummed I missed that Modesto screening. I was like kicking myself for like days, because it was like so close, right down the street practically. Like, how did I not know State Theater?
Yeah.
How did I not know? And it was just like,
Yeah, I mean, I've held screenings here in California before, most of them in the Los Angeles area, but it's always such an ordeal, you know, taking the trip down there, getting everything prepared, and then coming back. So being able to hold that here in Modesto, my own, you know, neighborhood.
And are you right out of Modesto?
It really, yeah, I'm right out of Modesto.
Oh,
so
practically neighbors. That's like the closest
like
podcasting I've ever done, other than Ryan and other people in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
but we're still hoping to hold more screenings here in California because we're celebrating it all year and a bit into next year. So I know that at the end of this month we're holding another screening in the Oakland area.
Oh, I'll be there for that.
When is that?
Be there for that.
I'd have to look it up, but I want to say it's like the 31st
Of October
of this month.
Oh, of September.
September.
Yes, of September.
Well, that's
coming up.
I'm gonna mark at least that like ballpark average down. To Mario Brothers on into September then.
Or if you hop into an airplane, you can fly down here to Raleigh because we're doing a screening in Raleigh this coming Friday on the 14th. The History Museum.
We got another podcast buddy who's pretty darn close to that area. I'm not too sure how he's in the Mario Brothers movie, but he does like movies in general. You know, old Wes from Via VHS, give a shout out.
Oh, yeah.
He's in North Carolina area. I don't know how close he is to Raleigh. That's like that thing. It's like, he's in North Carolina. He's probably right next to you. He could be across the state for all I know.
Still, but yeah.
Well, other than Mario Bros., I know we talked a bunch about that. What other video game movies kind of like, does it, any other ones pique your interest, like maybe even close to that Mario Brothers level of like fandom? Is there any of those other series that really jumps out to you?
Nothing comes even remotely close to the level of fandom, like at all. But I mean, I do enjoy them. I own a few of them. Like Street Fighter. I like Street Fighter. I like Mortal Kombat. I even like the Warcraft film that came out a couple of years ago from that Duncan Jones did.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that. I thought it turned out pretty good for and the technology and everything. Like I think that movie was pretty solid personally. So
yeah, no, I was really impressed with that movie. I was kind of bummed it just kind of came and went and people just didn't dig it.
It kind of fizzled, yeah. But man, I was like. Because I'm a big Duncan Jones fan. I just thought he did a good job with it.
Yeah, well, and for me too, it's like Warcraft's never been like a game that I've really played a whole lot of. I like dabbled a little bit in Warcraft 2, and that was about it. And so I was just kind of going into it because I just do the thing. It's like, it's a video game movie. I got to show up and support the cause. And I went in there and been like, man, this thing's fantastic. Like, I don't really know the lore or anything of it, but I'm enjoying it. And like coming in as somebody who doesn't know what's really going on, and I can dig it and like have a good take home from it. That was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I also I enjoyed Doom is not bad, and Doom's a good guilty pleasure, and the new Tomb Raider was pretty good too.
Yeah,
I thought it was
okay. I saw Doom for the first time last night.
What?
Really?
I still haven't seen it.
It's on Netflix now, so I finally had the opportunity, and I've always been a huge fan of the concept of Doom, the idea of science being able to penetrate some sort of hole to a dimension of demons. So for me, the film was a little offensive to boil it down. 10% of the population turns into demons. It was a hit or miss, and I mean, I thought the production design was a little inspired. It felt like a mix between the original Doom and the Doom 3 that had just come out, but it didn't do enough in either direction. And I know a lot of people praise that first person segment, but it felt a lot more evocative of one of those arcade shooters like House of the Dead than it does Doom. But I will praise the actors. Dwayne Johnson, he's good in nearly every role he does. Everyone was really good. I thought they did well with the roles. And when they introduced the characters as like, this is Dr. Carmack and this guy is Pinky, I'm like, oh, well, here we go. I know those references. And it felt to me like, Super Mario Brothers with all the different Easter eggs. So I enjoyed that aspect of it.
Oh, yeah. That movie, I saw that one in theaters like day one when it came out, and I've always just loved the Doom movie. Like, just a great time all around. And that was that golden age period where, like, they were having video game movies coming out all the time, and some people might say, it's not a golden age, they weren't nearly that good. Like, no. So you had to be there. It was amazing. You know what I mean? You had the Resident Evil movie, you had Doom.
I was about to say you got Resident Evil. I own all the Resident Evil movies too, and I guess fandom I have some fandom for those because I have seen every single one of those in the theater like opening weekend. So
yeah, and the thing, this is how I feel about Resident Evil, because Resident Evil is one of my all-time favorite game series, and I almost separate the movies from the game. You know what I mean? It's like they got elements from each other, but if you try to go into the movie expecting 100% the game, you're just gonna make yourself angry. But if you go in there saying like it's a new take, it's an alternative, universe, then they're really fun movies. They're good action films. You at least get, a handful of your references in there. You get your characters. And I've pretty much enjoyed every single one of those movies. And that's one of those weird series where it started out really good. And then it had a couple like in-between movies that were, they were just decent and good, and so on. But then it kind of came back even better with like 4 and 5.
Yeah, like, because by then it was like self-aware and like knew what it was. And they just kind of
it just owned up to what it was.
It's kind of like the Fast and Furious of zombie movies, just got kind of more ridiculous as it went on.
That's exactly it.
And then it's like, another movie that I always liked a lot too was the Dead or Alive one. I thought that one was a pretty darn dialed-in video game movie. Did you guys ever see that?
I have not seen it.
Well,
No.
But
I just want to say that I feel that a lot of the issue with these video game movies is that there's just a stigma to it. And it's been true since Super Mario Brothers, and it's true now. You always hear about the video game movie curse, and you never hear about the book curse, which is funny considering nearly every single movie of all time is an adaptation of a book, or it's an adaptation of a previous movie, or it's an adaptation of a radio show, and it's just that you have a much smaller sample size of video games to adapt from than you do of books. So you see a lot more good book adaptations than you do video game adaptations. It's just not fair it's not a fair comparison at this point in time. And I think that's something that you see like even Rotten Tomatoes trying to address. Like recently they added a lot more critics so they could get a more diverse opinion on different films. And you look at all these older films that are listed on Rotten Tomatoes, including Super Mario Brothers, and they have like 5 to 10 different reviews, and they're all negative. And it's like, well, if no one's really taking the time to submit all the different newspaper reviews that were available, it's just the particular people that happen to have a Rotten Tomatoes account and were easily able to transfer it. So it's the sample size you get for the reviews and films that have been on Rotten Tomatoes since the website debuted is going to be a lot different than you see for the aggregate of films that come out this year.
Oh yeah,
that's always kind of been my problem with Rotten Tomatoes, because people act as if like, well, if Rotten Tomatoes says it has an 80, just like, yeah, well, I mean, like, well, Rotten Tomatoes says it's only a 50%. Like, well, how old is the movie? How many people had uploaded this review? How long ago? And plus, you always get something like, so you get some people like, it's thumbs up or thumbs down. Then you get people, it's a 2.5 out of 3.
So what is that? Is that thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Yeah, so it's like you have to create some weird equation off something that's not entirely concrete. It's like, oh, I guess we draw the line here, I guess.
Well, Rotten Tomatoes is one of those ones I've always been kind of against Rotten Tomatoes, and I never take it seriously, because here's the first thing. It's called Rotten Tomatoes, not Fresh Tomatoes. So they're going negative first. They are aping the negative like world. So if you're not like I always like the more optimistic view, and so I don't want to go with something that I know is going to start negative and then maybe they can get converted around it being positive as time goes on. I'd rather just see people that like stuff at the beginning, and if something is just really bad, then you'll see maybe a negative review. And that's almost where like Amazon comes in, because Amazon always brings out the hardcore fans to come defend it. And if there's no hardcore fans to defend it, then you kind of know, well, I guess this isn't something that's that great then.
Going back to the video game, actually not the video game curse. I'm just regarding upcoming video game movies. Are you looking forward to like Metal Gear Solid or Sonic the Hedgehog? Or do you guys kind of like still kind of like on the fence about it, or how do you feel about those?
No, I'll see them both. I'm really looking forward to Sonic the Hedgehog just because it seems bat shit. Just the way that they're adapting it just seems very Mario-esque from what we've seen so far. Like it seems live action, maybe. Like combined with, I'm not sure where they're going with it, but Jim, you had me at Jim Carrey, so I'm really excited to see what in the heck happens with that.
Like, I don't have incredibly high hopes for it, and I'm hoping it's good. I'm not hoping it's not going to suck, but it's one of those things where, because Sonic is probably my favorite video game character. More recent games, with the exception of Sonic Mania, have been kind of hit or miss, but Sonic's one of my favorite characters and has been for a long time. But at the same time, I just kind of look at that movie and I'm a little afraid it's going to go like Transformers meets Alvin and the Chipmunks. I'm a little afraid it's doing something like that. But I got a feeling. I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking of all the different things you could possibly do, and this isn't me trying to write my own script, but I could see it doing something like Robotnik, played by Jim Carrey, is some kind of crazy tech billionaire reaching into some other dimension, taking their resources, and then Sonic comes through, and from there, I don't know, we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's not too like, oh, you gotta get, Sonic has to help this kid get to the prom in time or some bullshit like that, you know? But
yeah, something where it's like not even Sonic oriented. It's now just like this kind of weird like family kids movie, and it just happens to have Sonic in there. But no, see, I always feel like I always want to go and support these video game movies because I feel at some point one of these ones is really going to take off, and from that point on, that kind of like cursed stigma is going to disappear, you know, because comic books had that for the longest time. But I don't really think anybody's going to say comic books have a bad stigma anymore, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Who's going to be saying like, oh, another comic book movie, let's watch them fail again, you know, because they do really good.
Well, I know who's going to say that. The Oscars are going to say that.
Oh, yeah, well, you know, Oscars, well, that's just a bunch of 70-year-old men trying to make decisions.
Well, Oscars,
yeah.
they're even
the whole best popular film category thing of, like, that was a big miss.
Oh, yeah, like, I was just about to bring that up. Like, it just sounds like a bunch of old guys like, hey, kids, we're hip. We saw Black Panther.
Well, the thing, too, is Oscars have never appreciated action, but they never appreciate things that are in kind of like other genres, like action, comedy, horror. All the other genres always get suffered. If you're not in drama, you pretty much aren't even allowed to be at the Oscars for the most part, excluding like those handful of movies that sneak in every once in a while.
I'm surprised Shape of Water won, saying it's science fiction, fantasy, but at the same time...
It's still in the drama category,
it's filmed in drama.
I know why it is.
About a lady fucking a fish, so, you know, they still had to make it, still could have made it artsy.
You know, if it was black, it was Creature from the Black Lagoon, and it had that, probably not, because, you know, he's got the stigma being in the horror category.
Yeah.
He's friends with Dracula. It's not going to work out for him in the Oscars.
Dude, can you wait in the parking lot? This is kind of a big night for me. I don't need you to fucking this up for me, all right?
But I always show up. It's we sit next to each other.
Not this day, Jack. Not today.
Oh.
Well, I mean, Luigi's human, and Daisy's a dinosaur, so I think that's another thing we can say that Super Mario Brothers accomplished first.
Oh, shit. That's a very good point. That is a very good point. I like, you guys also put a great gift for, like, right after Infinity War, like Mario did it first. You had the "we're merging" scene, like it was the only way, Luigi.
Oh yeah. That was a good time. We got a bunch of of Twitter activity off of that.
Yeah, my favorite comparison is always Daisy's face in the wall. You mentioned that it might have been an inspiration for the paintings in Super Mario 64. But for me, I've always been a fan of The Mummy and The Mummy Returns with Brendan Fraser.
Great films.
And the way that Imhotep creates his face in the sand or in the water or the sandstorm, I always felt like that would not have been possible if they hadn't done it first in Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, that's probably true too. You know, it's just that's kind of how that CG technology goes. Somebody kind of has to, you know, work it the first time, and once that's done, then everybody else can jump in and ape it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just one of those ones. It'll be interesting to see kind of like how, you know, Super Mario kind of goes once they finally try and do their stab at the new movie coming out, and you know, maybe they'll just go. Are they doing it straight animation? Is that how they're going with it?
Sonic?
No, Mario.
Mario is going to be straight animation.
CG.
Yeah, so it's not really it's not a live action movie. So it's more like in the cartoon realm. But
I guess here's my question: do they do the thing where it's okay? They're going to talk like most CG movies. Or are they going to try and do it where it's just almost Mario today? Yeah, exactly. Where it's
That's the question. Whether it's going to be that, or whether they're going to actually have Charles Martinet do the voices, or if they're just going to, you know, get, you know, hip, normal, regular.
Yeah, where it's like with Chris Hemsworth with Super Mario.
Yeah.
And Neil Patrick Harris as Luigi.
Yeah.
Can we have Iggy Pop be Bowser?
You know, it's like they have Ryan Reynolds is going to be Pikachu next year. Like, that's just crazy.
It seems so weird to me. The first live action Pokemon movie they're doing, like, no, we're skipping straight to Detective Pikachu. What? Yeah. Like, you think they would have gone, I don't know, I mean.
Red and blue, just saying. Just saying. That's your audience.
I mean, I think it makes sense because with the Detective Pikachu, it localizes the type of story they can tell. Whereas if it was your more traditional story based off of the actual games, you would expect that character to journey across the entire world from, erupting volcano to tropical islands. So I think that's something you can see in the future if Detective Pikachu does well.
Hopefully it does. I mean, I'm curious about it. Just Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu. That's something I never would have crossed my mind.
Well, that's the first sad thing is you think of the person who's probably been playing Pikachu for 20 years, be like, out of the way, you. But I've been playing Pikachu for 20 years. Nope, not anymore. Get out of here. Nobody wants you anymore. We got Ryan Reynolds in here.
Here's some food stamps. You're good.
He was in Deadpool. What were you in? Everything else? Yeah, everything else. Not Deadpool though. weren't people's most sexiest man of the year? Were you? No, it was probably a woman. It's probably Pikachu,
I think it is a woman. It's a Japanese lady. Yeah.
Well, in Japan, but I was thinking like the U.S. versions.
So. Oh, U.S. I think it's the same voice. I mean, I think it's the exact same person.
Is it? You think so?
I think so. I mean,
I could see
you don't got to translate Pikachu.
I could see some weird. Well, because the names aren't the same as in.
They're not.
No.
I thought
some of them are. Some of them aren't.
Oh, maybe not. Okay.
So, and I could just see some weird like voice acting, like
Union law.
Yeah, we gotta have an American come in and do it.
Yeah, something like
or
that.
Canadian. It's like an American, but different.
Close enough.
But no, it's kind of weird that they go up there because really, like Pokemon what they need is the Lord of the Rings treatment. That's how you need to do a Pokemon movie. Now, that probably sounds weird to, like, the majority of people over 40, but be like, whoa, I mean, Lord of the Rings, now that's an ancient classic. Pokemon. Are you kidding me? You gonna put that much money into that? It's from Japan. You can't trust it.
Get Meowth gnawing off Ash's finger and then jumping into, like, the fucking lava.
Meowth kind of would be, like, the Golem character of Pokemon.
He would.
He'd be following them around and trying to, to get... whatever he's trying to get from him, the badges. I don't know what Meow's trying to get.
Yeah.
He's trying to get Pikachu, of course, but...
Yeah. Among other things.
But, yeah. But I think once we get to a point where video games are kind of full on taken serious, because I think the thing is comic books finally got to that place because they've just been around for so long, and now you can technically have somebody who's 60 years old who's been into comics their whole life, and that can totally work. Where video games, it's kind of hard to find anybody who's over the age of 40 who's really into video games. Like those people are so few and far between. That I think it almost needs that about extra 10 years or so just for it to kind of finally get up there. And then, boom, you got a whole, spectrum of people from the age, 10 to 50 plus years old that are totally in the video games. And I think that's when those video game movies will finally take off. Because they kind of have that weird counterbalance of like, well, there's the video game fans, yeah, and we could make it for them, but that's not a big enough demographic. What about mom and pop in Oklahoma? You see, if mom and pop in Oklahoma can't see it, that's 75% of our revenue. And I think that's always kind of made those video game movies always sort of teeter-totter instead of just saying like, because it's like, you think about Resident Evil. Once again, I love the Resident Evil movies, but if you would have just done script for script, Resident Evil 1, like take the remake for GameCube and just turn that into a movie, you would have a blockbuster hit of a horror film. You know what I mean? That's all you got to do. You don't got to change one bit of it. Because here's the thing. The people that you're selling it to, the mom and pop in Oklahoma, well, they haven't played Resident Evil on GameCube yet. So it's going to be all brand new to them.
Yeah, that's definitely the part.
It's just that kind of thing of just like, just do it as is. It's like kind of with Metal Gear Solid. It's like, you really don't need to change anything. Just do Metal Gear Solid as a movie. Just take that script from the game, maybe you have to condense it a little bit, but at the end of the day, if you just kind of minus off you mindlessly running around in Metal Gear Solid and you just kind of have the story part, it's pretty much a good, perfect 2.5 hour long film.
I saw like an interesting conversation with the guy who's trying, because the movie's not set in stone. He's trying to get it made, and I think it's the guy that directed Skull Island, Kong Skull Island, and
yeah.
He was just going around. He got different concept art. He was just showing it around. It was just kind of mix matching some things. He said it's mostly going to be the what was the original system before the NES?
The MSX versions?
Yeah, the
Metal Gear 1 and 2?
Metal Gear 1 and 2, and then a little bit leading into Solid. So he's going to try and mix-mash a little bit of that, and then have flashbacks from Snake Eater, apparently. So,
and who knows, that could totally work. Not saying that that's out of the ballpark there, but sometimes it's just... I think this comes with any kinds of adaptation. It could come with comic books. It could come with, novels and so on. Is you get people who come in there and they go, this is an interesting idea, but let me tell you this. I think it'd be much better if I had this, and that, And I think sometimes that sort of kind of takes you out of almost the element of like what you're making. Instead of somebody just going, no, this isn't your story. Don't try to add your 2 cents into there. Just go 100%. Like, take that script that's already been made. It's been perfected. It went through many of people's hands already. It's sitting right there for you to use. Just do it. And, sadly, I don't think there's really, unless it's an anime, I'm not going to count animes, because, like Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, perfect example of, like, just do it as it is on, the game. And it works fantastic. But, that's a little bit different. Animation seems to get it right lots of times. When it comes down to live-action movies, it'd be interesting to see somebody don't do the adaptation, just do it as is and see what happens. Because nobody's really tried that yet. They always got to kind of change it. And, granted, it's still a fun movie for all these ones and so on. And, like, I don't mind a little bit of adaptation. I take things for what they are. But I would love to see it if somebody just did go the distance and said, like, we're going to do it 100%.
There's the Netflix Castlevania.
Ooh,
that's good. That's really good.
But once again, that's in the animated category. See, I don't know what it is. Like, animation, people get them so well done, but for some reason, it's like, why can't we?
Yeah, because it's a step closer to the source material, than live action. You have to jump a little bit farther to go from a video game to live action.
Well, I think it's that, and it's in less people's hands. It's not nearly as much of an investment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's that, because instead of being an animation, it could be like, well, we put $5 million into it. We didn't put $50 million.
Right. With a giant, big budget live action movie, there's a lot more tied up in it. Yeah. Course.
So what you need is you just need some video game fan who's really rich, so it can only go through one person's hand. He's the only backer on it.
That's kind of
the only investor.
That's kind of, not entirely, but kind of how the Castlevania one got done. Because the guy that got the Castlevania rolling was the guy who did. I think he was one of the producers on Dread. One of the producers, I think, Lone Survivor.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
He did the Punisher fan film that Thomas Jane was in. It was really good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, he kind of worked on a bunch of kind of cool little projects. I think he's just sort of like some entrepreneur type guy that kind of did and just did the things he liked and just threw some money into them. But yeah, like that Castlevania one was pure magic. It was like, oh my gosh, that's super dialed in. And, granted, once again, the animation ones always do. It's kind of like the DCU movies. Those are always like the most perfect, well-made like Batman films. It's almost like, you almost kind of feel like at the end of the day, why don't you just hire these guys that make animation and just put them in and just let them make these live action movies, you know what I mean? But for some reason, there's always that, well, you see, those are animation guys. They're not real people. They don't direct movies like, us over here, and they get that kind of like idea. Or even the same thing of comic book people. It's almost like, if you want to make the best comic book movie ever, why don't you grab the writer and the artist and have those be the writer and the director of the film? You'll get a perfect Batman movie. I kid you not. But then they're like, well, they write the funny books, you see?
Take a pencil out of their hand, they're lost. They don't know what the fuck to do.
Yeah, and they're not used to having people around them. They're not going to be able to react very well. They'll be scared. And I don't know why we still have that mindset that we can't, like, transcend. When at the end of the day, comic books, animation, movies, video games, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just a slightly different medium. Hello?
Ooh, what's going on?
We have a little Skype pause.
Yeah.
Those things happen every once in a while. But that's probably, maybe we should do the old wrap up here and, see what's happening. Maybe the internet's just trying to tell us something. They're like, hey, you've gone on for so long, guys. Time to give it the old stop, give it the old rest. But where is the best place? We know you got the website there, but what are the best places to find you guys, to find the Super Mario Brothers archive, all that good stuff? Where should they go?
Any other shout outs while you're at it?
Yeah, if you wanted to find us on Twitter, we're just SMB Movie. That's where we post most of our, our day-to-day news. We're working on a lot of projects. Right now, we're developing a new line of action figures based off of the existing style. They didn't produce figures for all of the characters in the film. So we're hoping that's something that fans will be really receptive to.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that'd be amazing, because I got the Mario and Luigi figures, but I would love to have all the other characters, too.
Yeah, and so you talked about the website and the Twitter and Facebook. What's their Facebook address, Steven?
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook. It's SMB the Movie Archive. Or you can just look us up, Super Mario Brothers the Movie Archive. It's usually the first page to pop up.
Perfect. Well, all kinds of good, fun stuff to make sure you guys find out there. And then any other place to find any of your guys' stuff or anything? Or is that the best place to go? Probably the best place to go is just the website itself.
Yeah, the website and those two social media things. So, Twitter and Facebook are the most active places you can find all the Super Mario Brothers movie archive happenings.
Perfect, and I'll make sure to put those links in the description below to make it easy for people to find that good stuff. But well, thanks so much for coming on the show, guys. We had a great talk, all kinds of good insight into like video game history and movie making and all that fun stuff. And I could talk about Mario Brothers any day, all day, especially when it comes down to also other video game movies too. It's just a section of film I really like a lot, and I feel it's very underrepresented.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one reason why our website is there, just to kind of have a well-informed spotlight on the original, the classic, now classic original video game to movie adaptation.
I know. Fill that void we all had for so long.
Exactly. We're at the 25 year anniversary, so we are the classic car now of movies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just like any car, it becomes a classic after 25 years, even if people didn't like it back then. But still, great movie, great times. Thanks again for coming on the show. Also, if you guys want to check out, we got oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, movies, and all that fun stuff. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Ryan Dunigan, and if you guys like to sign us out,
trust the fungus.
Wise words to live by. Thanks, folks. See you later.
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Sure, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, animation, and a whole lot more. We also have the Old Man Orange blog going with all kinds of fun stuff. If you easily want to support the show, use one of our Amazon links either on the website or in the description of the podcast below. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show either on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Newgrounds, or anywhere else that you seem to get this podcast from. Grab the sitcom-styled comic book Pizza Boys on either Comix Central, Comixology, or Amazon. Want more podcasts? Check out the Indie Comics Club over at Comix Central. I also got a workout website called Thor's Hidden Gym, filled with fitness tips and tricks, videos, and a whole lot more fun stuff in the calisthenics world. Talk to us on Twitter at Spencer S. Holmes and Dunigan Ryan. Like our Facebook pages of Old Man Orange Productions and Pizza Boys Comic. Thanks again. We're out of here.